It's been almost 5 years since I started building custom mechanical keyboards on this channel. Like most people, when I first discovered the world of custom keyboards, I thought I'd be getting a standard 101 keys one as well. But after making 145 videos, not one of them is a full-sized one. There were a couple that came close, and recently I even reviewed one that has a compact 1800 layout. But none of these are truly full-sized. And I've been itching to fill this void in my collection, and perhaps you too. I've always wondered why people don't make or don't buy them, and I think I have the answer. Because full-size custom keyboards are in itself a paradox. Let me explain. Budget brands like Keycaps and Maker do make full-sized keyboards, but their design language never really spoke to me. I'm not sure whether it is the fonts, it is the color theme, or perhaps it is the out-of-place features. These keyboards always appeared tacky to me. I naturally gravitate towards creations from boutique studios, but full-size custom keyboards from these studios are rare. Over the last 2 years, around 5, give or take, made it through group buy. So why are there so little of them? Well, full-size layouts occupy a strange, almost paradoxical position in the mechanical keyboard space. They are simultaneously the most familiar, yet the least inspiring. They are functionally abundant in keys, yet aesthetically stagnant. Technically, a full-size keyboard should give the designer a larger canvas to play with. But weirdly, in a hobby driven by creativity and personal expression, the full-size layout feels less like a canvas and more like an unchanging ancient relic. To understand why, you first need to realize something fascinating about the mechanical keyboard community. On the surface, people obsess over which switch is stocky, or which keycap looks better, or which mounting method is the best. But when you dive deeper, you realize it's really about something else altogether: identity. It's about taking something others never think about and asking the question, how can this part be made better? Or, what if this could be my creation, my thing? And yet, in this space defined by endless creativity and personalization, the full-sized format stays curiously untouched. And that's strange. The full-size keyboard is the most complete version of a keyboard. It has everything for you to tinker with: alphanumeric keys, function row, navigation cluster, and of course the controversial numpad. It is the default, the standard, the thing most people picture when they hear the word keyboard. And that's precisely the problem. Full-size keyboards are not lacking in function. They are lacking in visual tension. And without this tension, design becomes boring. So good design thrives on constraint. When you have a smaller canvas, you are forced to make decisions. You prioritize. You ask difficult questions. What matters most to me? What can be removed? What can be combined? These limitations are not obstacles. They are the very engine of creativity. And this is why smaller keyboard layouts feel so alive. Take a 60% keyboard. The moment you remove the function row, the arrow keys, the navigation cluster, you create a problem. And that problem demands designers to experiment with layers, with dual function keys, with entirely new ways of interacting with the keyboard. Users adapt, they learn, and ultimately develop a more intimate relationship with the tool in front of them. It becomes personal. Or take a 65% or a 75% layout. These play with compression. They challenge your visual rhythm. Designers introduce blockers. They create subtle asymmetries that give each board its own personality. Even small changes, like slightly shifting the arrow keys, tightening the gaps, can dramatically alter how the keyboard feels, both visually and physically. And now you compare that to a full-size keyboard. The layout is fixed. The numpad sits on the right. The arrow key sits in their familiar inverted T. The navigation cluster occupies its traditional island. The function row stretches unbroken across the top. Every element has a predetermined position, locked in by decades of convention. If you try so much as to mush things together to make it slightly more compact, it becomes a totally different 1800 layout. Perhaps you can try to be funky and perhaps do a southpaw variant, but that's it. And then you default back to this, the OG standard layout. In this sense, the designer is not designing a layout, they are inheriting one. And when this structure is fixed, creativity has nowhere meaningful to flow. What you end up with is a surface level variation. Different materials used, different colors, maybe a slightly different case angle. But the underlying form, the thing that actually defines the object, the keyboard here, remains unchanged. It's like you're redoing the same jigsaw puzzle over and over again. You can use different methods, sure, to piece it all together, but you're not fundamentally redefining what it is. It's still a jigsaw puzzle. It is still just a keyboard. And this is why full-size keyboards often feel aesthetically uninteresting. And for such an uninteresting tool, they are wide, very wide. They occupy a large footprint, which immediately limits how they fit into a desk setup visually. It becomes difficult to create a sense of elegance or balance when the object itself is so horizontally stretched. Smaller keyboards, by contrast, benefit from constraint. Their compactness allows for intentional negative space, both on the desk and in itself. Designers can play with margins, with symmetry, with visual weight, unless you're designing a keyboard for Shaquille O'Neal. Full-size keyboards often struggle to achieve the same clarity because it's simply too big. Too much is happening. Too many keys, too many zones, too many inherited expectations to fulfill the standard layout. And because these expectations are rigid, there's very little room to challenge them without breaking the very definition of what a full-sized keyboard is supposed to be. But the issue isn't just about visuals, it's cultural too. People in this hobby don't just buy keyboards at random. They curate. They choose layouts that reflect how they think, how they work. A smaller layout signals a deliberate choice. It suggests that the user has questioned the default and arrived at something personal to them. Full-size keyboards, on the other hand, are deeply associated with the default. They are the office keyboard, and because of that association, they carry very little cultural weight within the enthusiast space. They don't signal identity. And more importantly, it aligns with the inherent ethos of customization. Build only what you need. The full-size keyboard, by contrast, is monolithic. It bundles everything into a single, inseparable object. There's no flexibility, there's no adaptability. It assumes that you need everything all the time in exactly the same place. So in a community that values choice, this just feels lazy. And this brings us to the biggest question. Why are there so few full-size custom keyboard designers? Or should I say, designers willing to take up the challenge of creating a full-sized one? The answer, in many ways, is just a natural consequence and combination of everything we've just discussed. Designers are in many ways prideful. They are drawn to problems worth solving. They are motivated by the possibility of creating something new, something distinctive, something that contributes to the conversation, and something that speaks to who they are as a designer. Full-size keyboards offer very little of these opportunities because, like we just talked about, they embody the spirit of conformity, a standard, and no creative desires to conform. and not to mention the economical cost of selling a full-size keyboard. The S100 is already the cheapest of the bunch, coming in at $250 for a bare bones kit. Because here's the catch. Buyers willing to pay a premium for a custom keyboard are often the same audience that values uniqueness. They are looking for something different, something special that breaks away from the standard. And full-size keyboard, by definition, do not do that. So from a purely economical standpoint, they are a risky investment, and solo designers generally stay away from such risks. So don't get me wrong, full-size keyboards are not inherently bad. They are, in a paradoxical sense, complete. They have everything you need, yet nothing you truly desire. And this form of completeness is a double-edged sword. It provides a sense of familiarity and accomplishment, but it also closes doors to exploration. So when we say that full-size custom keyboards are boring, what we are actually saying is something more nuanced. We are saying that they leave very little room for imagination, a large canvas that ironically leaves little room for creativity. Because full-size keyboards are not empty canvases, they are pre-filled ones. And in a community that values expression, experimentation, and personality, that makes all the difference. Because at the end of the day, the most compelling designs are not the ones that give us everything. They are the ones that makes us choose. Alright, I'm done. See ya.